July 22nd, 1944. The rolling hills of Normandy, France, just east of Caen. Dawn's grey light filters through a drizzling rain, turning the mud into a sucking mire that clings to boots and tracks alike. Sergeant Elias Caen grips the edge of his foxhole, his M1 Garand rifle heavy across his lap, the cold metal slick with dew. The air hums with the low growl of idling engines. Sherman tanks from the 3rd Armored Division, their 75mm guns pointed toward the tree line where German positions lurk like shadows. Distant artillery rumbles, a thunder that shakes the ground, and the sharp crack of a flare pistol echoes somewhere to the north. Cain's breath fogs in the chill. He can smell the acrid tang of diesel and wet earth, mixed with the faint metallic bite of cordite from last night's skirmish. You feel it too, don't you? That knot in your gut as the lieutenant's voice cuts through the static of the field radio. All units, hold position. Intel says panzers in the woods, 88s dug in deep. Cain wipes rain from his eyes, scanning the horizon. His platoon, part of Task Force Cain under Colonel William Roberts, has been pushing since D-Day. But today feels different. Whispers in the mess tents spoke of a new beast rolling up from the rear. A tank too damn heavy for the engineers' liking, dismissed by brass back in Detroit as overkill for European roads. But here it is, rumbling into view now, its massive silhouette cutting through the mist like a predator emerging from the fog. The tank lumbers forward, its treads churning the mud into fountains of brown slurry. It's the T26E3, prototype designation Pershing, weighing in at 46 tons, nearly 10 tons heavier than the standard M4 Sherman. Captain John Carmichael, commander of the experimental detachment from the 1st Armored, stands in the cupola, his binoculars pressed to his face. The rain patters on the sloped armor plates, 100mm thick at the front, thicker than anything the Wehrmacht expected from the Allies. Inside, the 5-man crew jostles with every jolt. Driver Private Roy Ellis fighting the sluggish controls. Loader Corporal Hank Ruiz sweating over the 90mm main gun's massive shells, each one a back-breaking 43 pounds. Gunner Sergeant Thomas Vega peers through the periscope, his gloved hands steady on the elevation wheel. "She's a brute, Cap," Vega mutters over the intercom, the vibration humming through their bones, "but she'll punch through anything." Back in the States, this tank had been a headache. Dismissed by Ordnance Department suits in 1943 as too heavy, too fuel-hungry for the push across France. General Leslie McNair himself had vetoed mass production, calling it a white elephant that would bog down supply lines. Why risk bridges and roads with something that could tip the scales, literally, when Shermans were reliable if outgunned? But Eisenhower's boys in Chaff overruled it after Anzio. After seeing tigers and panthers chew through lighter armor like tin cans, a handful of Pershings were rushed over, untested, straight from Aberdeen proving ground. Now Carmichael's Beast, serial number 001, leads the advance, its turbine-like exhaust belching smoke that blends with the morning haze. Cain watches from his hole as the Pershing halts, turret swiveling with a mechanical whine. The radio crackles again. "Enemy spotted, 2 PaK-40s at grid 1422, fortified with trenches." German anti-tank guns, 75mm killers that had shredded dozens of Shermans already. The platoon tenses, orders fly, infantry to flank, mortars to soften, but Carmichael waves them off. "Let her sing," he says into the mic. Ellis guns the engine, the right R975 radial roaring to life, propelling the tank forward at a cautious 10 miles per hour. Mud splatters the hull, but the wide tracks, 18 inches across, distribute the weight, keeping her afloat where Shermans would sink. The first fortified position looms, a concrete pillbox nestled in a hedgerow, its machine gun slits spitting tracers. Bullets ping off the Pershing's glacis plate, harmless as raindrops. Vega sights in, the rangefinder clicking. "Range 800 yards, he calls. Carmichael nods. "Fire." The 90mm barks. a thunderclap that rattles Caen's teeth from half a mile back. The shell streaks out, an armor-piercing beast with a tungsten core, slamming into the pillbox at 1,000 feet per second. Concrete erupts in a fireball. The structure crumples like cardboard, flames licking the debris. Cheers ripple through the GIs, but Caen stays low. There's more. Pushing on, the Pershing encounters the Pak-40, camouflaged behind earthen berms, manned by a squad of SS Panzer Grenadiers. They open up, high-velocity rounds slamming into the front armor, sparking but not penetrating. The tank doesn't flinch. Ruiz slams home another round. Vega traverses left. Boom! The gun shatters the anti-tank position, the barrel twisting like licorice, bodies flung into the air. The crew feels the heat from the muzzle blast, the acrid smoke filling the compartment despite the blowers. "One down," Carmichael reports coolly, though his heart pounds. This isn't a drill. One hit from an 80 mm, and they're done. By midday the rain eases, but the tension doesn't. The platoon links up, Shermans fanning out behind the Pershing like ducklings. Caen's squad advances on foot, picking through the wreckage, twisted metal, spent casings, the moans of the wounded. They find a German lieutenant, uniform muddied, clutching a shattered arm. "Was ist das?" he gasps, staring at the retreating tank. "What is that?" Caen doesn't answer. He just binds the wound and moves on. The Pershing has already claimed its second mark, a network of trenches laced with mines and barbed wire, fortified by the 12th SS Panzer Division. Mortar fire rains down, but the tank's machine gun chatters back, 50 cal rounds chewing through the wire. Carmichael spots the third position, a cluster of bunkers ringed by dragon's teeth, anti-tank obstacles that would stall lighter vehicles. "Bridge the gap," he orders. Ellis angles the Pershing, using its weight to crush the concrete pyramids. Treads grinding them to dust. The hull shudders but holds. Vega fires twice, high-explosive shells turning the bunkers into craters. Dust and smoke billow, obscuring the view, but the radio confirms, clear. The crew exchanges grim nods. The tank's gyro stabilizer keeps the gun steady, even on the move, a tech the Germans envy. As the sun climbs, pushing toward the next ridge, Caen falls in beside the Pershing, his platoon securing the flanks. The beast has shrugged off hits that would have brewed up a Sherman, ricochets from MG-42s, even a glancing Panzerfaust. But whispers among the men carry doubt. She's thirsty, guzzling 3 gallons a mile, and the fuel trucks are lagging. Worse, scouts report heavier armor ahead. King Tigers from the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion, dug in with 102-minute guns that could crack even this hull at range. The Pershing rolls on, its engine a steady growl amid the chaos. Carmichael scans the map, plotting the path to the 9th position, but for now, the first 3 fall like dominoes. Yet in the back of his mind, he knows the brass was half right. Too heavy means too slow to evade, too visible a target. One mistake, and the miracle ends in fire. If you want to hear how this dismissed giant fares against the rest, subscribe to the channel. Word count, 872. The afternoon sun breaks through the clouds over the Norman bocage, casting long shadows across the shattered landscape east of Caen. Sergeant Elias Caen trudges alongside the Pershing, his boots sinking into the churned earth. The tank's massive treads, leaving furrows wide enough to swallow a man. The air hangs heavy with the stench of burning oil and cordite, punctuated by the sporadic chatter of small arms fire from the flanks. Captain John Carmichael wipes sweat from his brow inside the commander's cupola, the leather of his helmet chafing against his skin. The Pershing's engine throbs like a heartbeat, the right radial pushing her forward at a steady crawl, her 46-ton bulk undeterred by the uneven terrain that would have mired lesser machines. Scouts from the 3rd Armored Division radio ahead. The 4th position, a fortified farmhouse turned into a command post by the 12th SS Panzer Division, bristles with defenses. sandbagged windows hide MG-42 machine guns. Their 200 rounds per minute buzz, a reaper's song, while a pair of 75mm Pak-40s lurk in the barn, camouflaged under hay and netting. Caen's platoon spreads out, M1 carbines at the ready, as the Pershing crests a low rise. You can almost feel the anticipation coiling in your chest, the way the crew holds its breath, Private Roy Ellis easing off the throttle, Corporal Hank Ruiz chambering a fresh 90mm round with a metallic clunk that echoes in the tight confines. "Enemy at 200 yards, Sergeant Thomas Vega announces over the intercom, his voice steady despite the adrenaline spiking through his veins. The periscope whirs as he adjusts, the farmhouse coming into sharp focus. Stone walls reinforced with earth, a watchtower poking up like a jagged finger. Bullets whip past, stitching the ground near Caen's feet, forcing him to dive behind a splintered apple tree. The Pershing doesn't waver. Carmichael keys the mic. "Infantry, hold fire. Let us soften it." Ellis nudges the beast forward, the wide tracks bridging a drainage ditch that would have stalled a Sherman. Mud squeezes up between the links, but she powers through, the hull vibrating with raw power. The first MG-42 opens up, green-traced rounds hammering the front armor. Sparks fly, the impacts like sledgehammers on an anvil, but the 100mm sloped glacis deflects them all, ricochets whining off into the fields. Vega traverses the turret, the electric motors humming. "Locked on," he says. "High explosive, point blank." The gun roars, the recoil shoving the entire tank back a foot, the blast wave rattling the vision blocks. The shell arcs out, detonating against the farmhouse wall in a blossom of flame and debris. Bricks vaporize, the roof collapsing inward with a groan that carries across the valley. Screams cut through the dust, German defenders scrambling from the ruins, only to be cut down by the Pershing's coaxial 30 cal. Chattering from Vega's trigger, but the Pak-40s aren't done. One barks from the barn, a flat crack sending a 75mm round slamming into the turret ring. The crew jolts, alarms blare inside as shrapnel pings off the interior. "We're hit!" Ruiz yells, ducking instinctively, his hands slick on the loader's hoist. No penetration, the armor holds. The shot glancing off the mantlet, but the shock rattles their teeth. Carmichael grits out, "Return fire now!" Another boom, and the barn erupts, hay igniting in a whoosh, the Pak-40's crew incinerated in the inferno. The second gun swings wildly, but the Pershing closes the distance, crushing a stone wall under its tracks. Vega pumps an armor-piercing round into the breach. The gun explodes in a shower of twisted metal, silencing the position for good. Caen rises from cover, signaling his squad forward. They move in wary bounds, bayonets fixed, stepping over the smouldering wreckage. A wounded SS trooper groans nearby, his Panzerfaust launcher bent beside him, too late to use. "The Americans! What monster is that?" he mutters in broken English before passing out. Caen doesn't linger. The platoon clears the outbuildings, finding maps and radios that hint at reinforcements massing to the east. The Pershing idles, exhaust curling like smoke signals, as Carmichael confers with Colonel Roberts over the radio. "Fourth down, sir. She's holding up better than expected." But privately he worries. The hit to the turret has jammed a hatch, and Ruiz nurses a gash from flying splinters. Human cost even in this steel fortress. Pushing on toward dusk, the bocage thickens. Hedgerows like living walls, laced with mines from the German fallback lines. The fifth position reveals itself as a crossroads bunker complex, manned by Fallschirmjäger paratroopers from the 6th Parachute Regiment, their FG-42 rifles barking from elevated slits. Anti-tank ditches front the setup, spiked with caltrops and barbed wire, designed to funnel tanks into kill zones. The Pershing halts at the tree line, idling as Caen's men probe with Bangalore torpedoes, blasting gaps in the wire. Explosions bloom orange in the fading light, the ground trembling underfoot. You sense the shift, don't you? The way the air thickens with diesel fumes and the sharp ozone of unspent powder. Ellis revs the engine, the radial bellowing as they charge the ditch. The tank surges, nose dipping into the gap, then climbing out with a grind of tortured earth. Paratrooper fire rakes the sides, bullets denting the 50mm plating but failing to pierce. Vega spots a heavy machine gun nest atop the main bunker, a water-cooled MG-34, pouring lead. "Traversing," he calls, the turret swinging with a whine. The 90mm speaks again, the high-explosive shell turning the nest into a crater, bodies tumbling like ragdolls. The complex fights back hard. A hidden flamethrower jets from a side embrasure, gouts of fire licking the Pershing's flank. Paint blisters, rubber seals char, but the armor shrugs it off. No fuel lines ruptured, no inferno. Ruiz loads an incendiary round. Vega fires point blank, the bunker venting smoke as internals ignite. Inside the tank, the heat builds, blowers whining against the acrid haze. "She's cooking," Ellis complains, wrestling the sticks through the mud. But they press. The 50 cal on the roof mount, manned by a borrowed gunner from the infantry, sweeping the trenches, suppressing snipers. By nightfall, the 5th falls, the crossroads a graveyard of twisted rebar and spent casings. Caen's platoon mops up, capturing a lieutenant clutching a satchel of codes, intel on the 101st SS moving up. The Pershing pulls back to a hasty leaguer. Crew piling out to stretch cramped limbs under the stars. Carmichael checks the damage. Scorch marks, a few gouges, but the 90mm gun is pristine, ready for more. Fuel runs low, another 10 gallons burned in the push, and Roberts warns of airdrops tonight. The men share K rations around a foxhole fire, whispers of the tank's reputation spreading, dismissed back home. But here, a god of iron. Dawn's not far off, and scouts report the 6th position, a rail yard turned fortress, ringed by rail cars packed with explosives, guarded by Panther tanks from the 21st Panzer Division. The Pershing's lights flicker off, waiting in the dark, but the growl of approaching engines promises the real test. One Panther's 75mm could match their punch, if it gets a side shot. Carmichael stares into the night, the weight of the beast feeling heavier than ever. The moon hangs low over the rail yard east of Caen, its pale light glinting off twisted tracks and rusted boxcars that the Germans have turned into a deadly perimeter. It's just past midnight on July 23, 1944, and the air vibrates with the distant rumble of Allied bombers droning toward Berlin, their contrails faint scars in the sky. Sergeant Elias Caen hunkers in a drainage culvert, his field jacket damp from the night's chill, the metallic tang of rust mixing with the oily reek of the Pershing idling 50 yards back. Captain John Carmichael peers through his binoculars from the cupola, the night vision goggles, experimental from the OSS, casting everything in ghostly green. The 6th position sprawls before them. A switching yard fortified by the 21st Panzer Division, railcars loaded with ammunition crates and fuel drums, chained together as barricades. 2 Panther tanks, sleek OSF G models with their 75mm KWK 42 guns, prowl the edges, their Maybach engines purring like predators. Inside the Pershing, the crew stirs in the red glow of battle lamps. Private Roy Ellis massages his aching shoulders, the controls sticky with sweat, while Corporal Hank Ruiz stacks 90mm shells in the ready rack, his bandaged hand throbbing from yesterday's splinter. Sergeant Thomas Vega calibrates the gun sight, the clack of adjustments sharp in the confined space. "Panthers at 200 yards, Cap," he whispers over the intercom. "Sloped sides, tough nuts." Carmichael nods, his voice a low rasp. "We hit the rail cars first. Draw 'em out." The radio hisses with Colonel Roberts' warning, "Air support delayed. Handle it quiet if you can." But quiet isn't an option. The yard's floodlights snap on, bathing the area in harsh yellow, and a flare arcs up from a watchtower, popping bright as a magnesium burn. You feel the pulse quicken. That electric tension as Ellis engages the clutch, the right R975 radial snarling to life. The Pershing surges from cover, treads biting into the gravel-strewn ground, kicking up sparks and loose ties. Caen's platoon fans out on foot, suppressing fire from the flanks with Thompsons chattering into the shadows. The rail cars loom, their sides bulging with high explosives, enough to level a block if detonated. A Panther swivels, its turret whining, the long barrel tracking the intruder. The first shot cracks out, a hypersonic whip that slams into the Pershing's front armor at an angle. The impact shudders through the hull like a gong strike. Inside, Ruiz ducks as fragments pepper the bulkhead. No breach, the 100mm plate holds, the round ricocheting skyward in a trail of fire, but the rangefinder fogs from the heat. Fire! Carmichael barks. Vega's thumb depresses the pedal. The 90mm thunders, the shell screaming toward the rail line. It punches through a boxcar, igniting the contents in a chain reaction. Ammunition cooking off in staccato pops, fuel erupting in a rolling fireball that engulfs the barricade. The blast wave rocks the Pershing back, flames leaping 50 feet high, silhouetting the second Panther as it reverses into the yard. German shouts echo, Panzer Grenadiers spilling from bunkers with MP40s blazing, bullets pinging off the tracks like hail on tin. Caen rolls behind a derailed flat car, returning fire, his M1 barking as he drops two shadows in the inferno's glow. The surviving Panther charges, its 55-ton frame barreling down the main track, gun elevating for a side shot. Ellis swerves, the wide treads gouging sleepers, but the Pershing's weight makes her sluggish, too heavy for quick dodges, just as the brass feared. Vega traverses frantically, the electric drive straining. Got him! The armor-piercing round lances out. Tungsten core piercing the Panther's 80mm mantlet at 500 feet per second. The enemy tank erupts from within, turret blown off in a gout of flame and smoke, the crew's screams cut short. Cheers crackle over the radio, but there's no time. Infantry swarm the yard, grenades arcing toward the Pershing's underbelly. The coaxial 30 cal sweeps them down, brass casings piling at Vega's feet. By 200 hours, the 6th position crumbles, the rail yard a smouldering ruin of twisted metal and craters. Caen's men secure the perimeter, prying intel from a singed command tent. Orders for the 101st SS to counterattack at dawn. The Pershing pulls back, her paint scorched but hull intact, though Ellis reports steering play from the hit. Axle stress mounting. Carmichael allows a brief halt. The crew brews coffee on a portable stove, the bitter steam cutting the cordite stench. She's earning her keep, Ruiz mutters, eyeing the gauges. Fuel at half, thirsty beast, and ammo down to 15 rounds. But the whispers among the GIs grow. This dismissed prototype has turned the tide, smashing what would have been a meat grinder for Shermans. Dawn breaks grey and unforgiving. The bocage alive with the corps of crows wheeling over fresh graves. The push resumes toward the 7th position. An abandoned quarry turned into a redoubt by the 12th SS, its sheer cliffs honeycombed with caves rigged as machine gun nests and ammo dumps. Vertical faces make it a natural fortress, accessible only via a narrow defile mined with telechargers. Anti-tank mines that could flip even this giant. Scouts confirm 3 PaK-43 88mm guns emplaced at the heights, their flat trajectories death to anything below. Caen leads the approach on half-tracks, the Pershing trailing like a reluctant bull, her engine labored from the overnight strain. The defile narrows, walls closing in like jaws. Mines detonate ahead, prodded by engineers, sending fountains of rock and dirt skyward. A PaK-43 opens up from above, the hypervelocity round shearing a boulder near the tank's track. The Pershing jolts, but presses on. 50 cal firing upward in defiant bursts. You can hear it, can't you? The whine of shells passing overhead, the grind of stone under treads. Vega angles the 90mm skyward, the gyro stabilizer whining as it compensates for the incline. Target acquired. Upper ledge. The gun bucks. The shell climbs, detonating amid the gun crew in a flash that avalanches debris down the slope. SS troops counter from the caves, STG-44 assault rifles stitching the air. A Panzerfaust streaking out to glance off the turret side, explosive force denting but not penetrating. Ruiz loads an HE round. Vega pumps it into a cave mouth, the blast collapsing the entrance in a roar of rubble. The second ATT Mimitubus swings, scoring a direct hit on the glasses. The crew braces, impact like a freight train, but the slope defeats it, the round skidding off in a spray of sparks. "Armor holds!" Carmichael yells, adrenaline raw. They close the defile, the Pershing's bulk crushing a minefield, detonations muffled under her belly. The third Pak-43 falls to a point-blank shot, the barrel shearing away as the tank crests the quarry floor. Infantry pours in behind, clearing caves with grenades and flamethrowers, the air thick with the roar of promethium and cries in German. Caen captures a major, his uniform caked in dust, babbling about Der Schwer Amerikaner, the heavy American. The 7th is theirs by noon, the quarry yielding crates of 88mm shells and maps marking the 8th position. A chateau stronghold on the Orne River, bristling with artillery and king tigers. The Pershing idles amid the rocks, crew patching a hydraulic leak, but scouts report the big cats moving. 128mm guns that could end this run in one shot. Carmichael studies the horizon, the beast's shadow long and unyielding, wondering if the weight will finally betray them. The Orne River cuts through the Normandy countryside like a silver vein, its banks choked with reeds, and the skeletal remains of bombed-out bridges from the Canadian push weeks earlier. It's late afternoon on July 23, 1944, and the sun dips low, painting the chateau's ivy-clad walls in bloody hues. Sergeant Elias Caen wipes grime from his face, crouched behind a shattered wall of the estate's outer gardens, the river's murmur drowned by the distant thud of 105mm howitzers from the 1st Infantry Division supporting the flank. Captain John Carmichael stands tall in the Pershing's cupola. The tank halted on a gravel approach road, its 46-ton frame casting a shadow that swallows the wildflowers. The air tastes of brackish water and gunpowder, carried on a breeze that rustles the poplars lining the riverbank. The 8th position is a masterpiece of desperation, the Château de la Rivière, a 17th-century pile requisitioned by the 12th SS Panzer Division as a river-crossing strongpoint. Its cellars house command radios linking to Rommel's HQ, while the upper floors bristle with 20mm flak guns repurposed for ground defense, their quad barrels itching for targets. 2 King Tiger tanks, massive 70-ton behemoths with 128mm K-43 guns, lurk in the courtyard, their interleaved road wheels sunk into the manicured lawns, engines idling with a deep, ominous rumble. Trenches ring the perimeter, manned by Panzer Grenadiers clutching MG-42s and Panzerfausts, the anti-tank launchers warheads capable of cracking even the Pershing's armor if fired close. Caen's platoon, reinforced by a squad from the 3rd Armoured's engineers, waits for the signal. Bangalore torpedoes at the ready to breach the wire. Inside the Pershing, tension coils like a spring. Private Roy Ellis grips the tillers, the steering sluggish from yesterday's axle strain, sweat beading under his helmet as the right R975 radial coughs against the humidity. Corporal Hank Ruiz winces, his bandaged hand fumbling a 90mm shell into the breech, the hoist groaning under the weight. Sergeant Thomas Vega squints through the periscope, the rangefinder's tick marking the Tigers at 1,500 yards. "Big boys, Cap," he says, voice edged with respect. "Schwer Panzer. Those 128s'll punch through us like butter if they side-shot." Carmichael adjusts his binoculars, the leather creaking. "We don't give 'em the chance. Hit the flak first, blind 'em." The radio crackles with Colonel Roberts' voice. "Carmichael, air recon shows reinforcements crossing the Orne. Smash it quick. Don't let 'em bridge. You can feel the stakes rising, can't you? That prickle on your skin as Ellis throttles up. the treads churning gravel into dust clouds that obscure the river mist. The Pershing lumbers forward, crossing a pontoon laid by engineers over a bombed span, the deck flexing under her weight, but holding barely. The brass's fears of bridge collapses, flashing in Carmichael's mind. Bullets snap from the chateau's windows, ricocheting off the glacis with angry zips, but the tank presses on. 50 cal mount swiveling to rake the trenches. A flak 38 opens up from the tower, 20mm rounds stitching the air in a lethal hail, one shattering a vision block in a spray of glass. Vega curses, shards nicking his cheek, blood warm and metallic on his lips. "Traversing!" the turret whines, gyro stabilizer compensating for the roll over uneven ground. The 90mm gun erupts, high explosive shell arcing high before plunging into the tower base. The flak gun topples in a cascade of stone and twisted barrels, flames licking the ornate facade as ammunition inside cooks off in brilliant flashes. German defenders swarm the grounds, STG-44s barking from behind marble statues toppled for cover. Caen signals the charge. His men dash forward, grenades sailing into embrasures, blasts echoing off the river like thunderclaps. A King Tiger stirs, its massive turret rotating with a hydraulic groan, the 128mm barrel, longer than a man, locking on. The shot booms, a thunderous crack that warps the air, the round slamming into the earth beside the Pershing, showering her in dirt and shrapnel. The crew rocks. Ruiz's shell slips clanging to the floor. "Reload!" Carmichael roars, the compartment reeking of fear sweat and oil. Ellis veers left, using a hedgerow for partial cover, the wide tracks pulverizing rosebushes into pulp. The second Tiger fires, the shell glancing off the turret mantlet in a fountain of sparks, the impact jarring Vega's hands from the sights. Alarms wail, optics cracked but functional. "AP round now!" Vega sights the lead Tiger's flank as it repositions, the sloped 100mm side armor vulnerable at this angle. Ruiz heaves the tungsten cord projectile home. The gun recoils with a seismic jolt, the Pershing shuddering as if kicked by a giant. The shell strikes true, penetrating the engine deck in a jet of flame, the Maybach HL-230 bursting into secondary explosions that rip the turret open, black smoke billowing like a funeral pyre. The crew bails, one dragging a wounded comrade toward the river, only to be cut down by infantry fire. The surviving Tiger backs toward the chateau's stables, gun elevating for another shot. Panzerfausts streak out from the walls, hollow charge warheads detonating against the tracks in blossoms of fire. Links snap, the left tread jamming with a metallic screech, but Ellis fights the controls, slewing the beast around. Vega pumps an HE round into the stable wall, collapsing it on the tank in tons of timber and stone, pinning it immobile. Desperate, the Tiger's gunner fires blind. The 128mm round whistles overhead, splintering a tree behind Caen's position. The Pershing closes, Vega traversing to the exposed underbelly. One final shot, the armor-piercing beast lancing through the thinner belly plate, igniting the ammo racks in a cataclysmic blast that shakes the ground, windows shattering across the chateau a quarter-mile away. By twilight, the 8th falls. Caen's platoon storms the breach, clearing rooms thick with smoke and the moans of the dying. They seize a radio operator mid-transmission, his fingers frozen on the Morse key, messages revealing the 9th position's setup. A bridgehead across the Orne, the last bastion before Caen proper, guarded by the elite 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion's reserves. The Pershing idles on the riverbank, her hull scarred with black burns and gouges, fuel needle trembling near empty. Crew piles out, Ruiz's hand bleeding through the bandage, Ellis checking the damaged track under flashlight beams. Carmichael lights a cigarette, the flame flickering in the dusk, staring across the water where shadows move. More tigers, perhaps, or worse. The beast has claimed 8, dismissed no longer, but the 9th looms like judgment. The river between them a watery grave, if she falters now. The Orne River rushes dark and swollen under the last light of July 23, 1944, its current churning with debris from upstream shelling, branches, shattered crates, the occasional bloated form bobbing in the murk. Twilight deepens over the eastern approach to Caen, the air thick with the metallic scent of wet stone and the faint, fishy rot of the water. Sergeant Elias Caen kneels on the muddy bank, his M1 Garand slung low, peering through the reeds at the far shore, where the 9th position hunkers like a beast in the gloom. Floodlights from the German bridgeheads stab the mist, illuminating sandbagged revetments and the hulking silhouettes of more King Tigers from the 101st SS Heavy Panzer Battalion. Captain John Carmichael stands in the Pershing's cupola, the tank's engine idling with a laboured cough, her 46-ton frame scarred and low on fuel, the damaged left track groaning under the slightest shift. Inside, the crew moves like ghosts in the dim red light. Private Roy Ellis wipes grease from his hands, the steering tillers sticky and unresponsive from the earlier hits, his eyes hollow from 36 hours without real sleep. Corporal Hank Ruiz grimaces as he loads the last few 90mm shells, his bandaged hand a throbbing ruin, blood seeping through the gauze onto the cold metal floor. Sergeant Thomas Vega adjusts the cracked periscope, his cheek stitched roughly by a medic, the wound pulling tight with every turn. "Bridgehead at 800 yards, Cap," he reports, voice hoarse. 3 Tigers dug in with 80mm Pak 43s on the flanks. Infantry everywhere. Looks like the whole battalion's reserves. Carmichael nods, the weight of command etching deeper lines on his face. The radio whispers from Colonel Roberts. "Carmichael, that's the gate to Caen. Take it, or we're stalled here till Berlin falls." No pressure, just the endgame. You can taste the finality in the air, can't you? That bitter edge of exhaustion mixed with the river's damp chill. As engineers paddle assault boats across undercovering fire, their paddles slapping softly against the current. Caen's platoon piles in behind, life vests chafing under their web gear. Thompson's gripped white-knuckled. The Pershing can't ford here. The river's too deep, the bottom too soft for even her wide tracks. Instead, she'll provide fire support from this side, her 90mm reaching across like a god's wrath. But scouts whisper of demo charges on the span, ready to drop if the Yanks push. A flare pops overhead, bathing the far bank in stark white, and the Tigers stir, their 128mm guns elevating with hydraulic sighs that carry over the water. Ellis revs the engine, the right R975 radial bellowing defiance, propelling the tank forward to a hull-down position behind a bombed-out mill. Mud sucks at the treads, the damaged links popping like gunfire, but she holds. Bullets whip from the bridgehead, MG-42s tracing green lines into the boats, screams cutting the night as one craft overturns. Caen's voice cracks over the platoon net. "Suppress those nests! Flank the bridge!" His men return fire, grenades arcing into the revetments, but a Pak 43 barks from the tree line, the 88mm round splashing the river short, geysers drenching the lead boat. The Pershing's 50 cal chatters from the roof mount, a borrowed gunner sweeping the gun position, brass raining down like metallic hail. "Target the lead Tiger," Carmichael orders, his binoculars steady despite the adrenaline. Vega sights through the fogged optics, the rangefinder clicking urgently. The enemy tank dominates the bridge approach, its 70-ton bulk camouflaged with netting, the long 128mm barrel scanning the water. A shell screams from its flank sister, slamming into the mill wall behind the Pershing, bricks exploding in a dusty roar that peppers the hull. The crew ducks. Ruiz's shell rack clatters. "No penetration," Vega calls, tasting blood from his lip. The turret whines as he traverses, the electric motors straining against the damage. "AP round, range 900. Ruiz heaves the tungsten beast home, muscles screaming. The 90mm gun bucks like a cannon on a ship, the recoil slamming Vega back into his seat. The shell streaks across the Orne, a tracer in the night. punching through the Tiger's front drive sprocket at an oblique angle. Armor shreds, the round cooking off the fuel tanks in a secondary blast that lights the riverbank like dawn. Flames leap high, silhouetting Panzer Grenadiers fleeing toward the bridge, their MP-40s abandoned in panic. Cheers ripple from the boats, but the second Tiger retaliates, its 128mm thundering, a direct hit on the Pershing's turret side. The impact is apocalyptic, the hull ringing like a bell, shrapnel tearing through the commander's hatch. Carmichael slumps, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead, but he's up in seconds, yelling, "We're still in it! Fire!" Inside, the compartment fills with smoke, blowers choking. Ellis fights the controls as the tank slews from the shock, the damaged track finally snapping under the torque. Vega, ears ringing, reloads blindly, Ruiz passing shells one-handed, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. The gun speaks again, he this time, slamming into the bridge supports. Concrete cracks, the span shuddering as demo charges fizzle without full ignition, wires severed by the blast. Infantry hits the far bank, Caen leading the charge up the embankment, bayonets flashing in the firelight. A Panzerfaust streaks from a bunker, detonating against a half-track and sending GIs sprawling. But the Pershing's coaxial 30 cal rakes the position, silencing it. The third Tiger lunges forward on the bridge, intent on blocking the crossing, its gun traversing toward the boats. Vega spots it, the periscope's crosshairs steadying. "Last AP," he mutters. Boom. The shell arcs true, glancing off the glacis, but penetrating the turret ring, the weak seam where revolutions meet. The Tiger halts, venting smoke, its crew bailing into the river as ammo ignites in a chain of pops. By 2200 hours, the 9th crumbles. Caen's platoon overruns the command post, seizing a colonel from the 101st SS, his face ashen amid maps showing the Caen defences cracking. The bridge holds, just allowing the 3rd Armoured to pour across, Sherman's rumbling in the Pershing's wake. The prototype idles on the bank, engine sputtering on fumes, her hull a patchwork of welds and scars, turret dented, track half repaired with scavenged links, optics shattered. The crew emerges into the cool night, Ruiz collapsing against the mudguard, his hand a bloody mess, while Vega lights a cigarette with trembling fingers. Carmichael, forehead bandaged, clasps Caen's shoulder. "She did it, Sergeant. 9 positions. Dismissed for nothing." Word spreads through the division like wildfire. The T26E3 Pershing, the white elephant, has blazed a path to Caen, saving lives and shattering the line that stalled Montgomery for weeks. By morning, fuel trucks arrive, mechanics swarming the beast, but the cost lingers. 2 GIs lost in the boats, Ruiz medevaced, Ellis nursing a sprained wrist. Back in Schaff, reports fly to Eisenhower. The heavy tank proved its worth, vetoes overturned, production greenlit for the bulge. Yet for the men, it's simpler. The growl of that radial engine, the thunder of her gun, a lifeline in the mud and blood. The war grinds on, but here on the Orne's far bank, a dismissed giant claimed her legend, one fortified hell at a time.